So I think we can just get
Morning,
started.
guys.
Um,
Morning, Tom.
so good morning, everybody. I would like to introduce you to Dan O'Rourke from Avon Crop Amenity, who will take it over from here. And then eventually Dr. Dempsey will make his presentation. Thank you all for joining us today. Here we go. Dan?
Thanks, Anil. Yeah, just a brief introduction from me. Morning, everybody. Obviously on behalf of myself, obviously Dan O'Rourke, Johanna and the team from Avon Crop Amenity Products. I'd like to welcome you to the webinar. We've got it as proofing your turf, strategies with surfactants and silica, something that's obviously in the forefront of everyone's mind as we enter the new season. Obviously, water management is certainly up there in the top of my list as I go into the season. So it's something that we really need to concentrate on. As Anil's mentioned, appreciate you taking the time out to register and coming on the webinar. I appreciate that everyone's, certainly in the UK and the island, we are entering spring apparently, although the temperatures overnight have been quite cold, certainly over here, recent nights. But so I appreciate your time. I know we're all very busy and looking forward to the season ahead. At this point, I just want to obviously introduce Dr. John Dempsey. We're very privileged to have his company. He's very respected within the industry, of course, with his turf science, but not just with that. Also, John worked in the field for many years now. I'm sure he'll elaborate on this over in Royal Curragh in Ireland for 30, 40 years as superintendent, John, I'm not sure. So he comes with a wealth of experience, not just from, let's say, turf science side, but also from the field side, which is also very important. That's pretty much my introductions, if I'm honest. I'd obviously like to do a bit of housekeeping, as Anil has mentioned. If you can all turn your videos off and mute yourselves, and until the end of the presentation, when then John will take some questions and hopefully can answer for you. From that point, it's enough from me, and over to you, John.
Thanks, Dan, for that wonderful introduction.
No problem.
And thanks to Anil and Aquariton for, again, asking me to give this presentation on Defying the Dry, Advanced Drought Strategies. So just to mention again that we're sponsored today by Aquariton, down here at the bottom. That's their link there, Aquariton Turf Solutions. And Avon Crop, I've met all the people over in Avon Crop the last couple of years. As Father Ted would say, a great bunch of lads. Seriously though, a good company. So delighted to be working along with them. And as Dan mentioned, yes, going back to the 1980s as a greenkeeper. Actually, I was doing this, I'm going to deviate slightly here. I was doing a couple of talks in the US and Canada there a few months ago, talking about how things were when I started as greenkeeping. And because I worked on the Curragh Golf Club, which was raised by sheep, I was telling them when I started in the business, my very first job was cleaning up after the sheep. And down in the US, I had to say, I couldn't mention the word SHIT. I had to say I had to clean up the organic matter from the sheep. Whereas in Canada, I could say I cleaned up the sheep shit, basically. And I said to them, I wasn't allowed to say that in the US, but there you go. Anyway, yeah, so for almost 40 years in the business as a greenkeeper, superintendent, got into the academic end somehow and ended up talking about and doing research, which is very interesting as I'm officially retired, but I still do a lot of field trials and research and presentations. So today we're talking about how to defy the dry, as they say, advancing drought strategies. Now, yeah, so we'll just get into that, talking about how we can help our turfgrass remain resilient and healthy, especially during restricted water years, which seem to be increasing a lot. So, what exactly is a drought? actually this is grand. It's coming up in front of me. It's coming up to the side as well. Well, you can define a drought meteorologically being a prolonged period of low rainfall, which sounds fairly obvious. But as I say, we're over in, say, Vancouver last February, and they were saying to me, very concerned because of the lack of snowfall through the winter up in the mountains, which would lead then to low availability this coming summer. So you have to sort of think ahead here, you know. So it's not just lack of rainfall during the summer, but it's the year-round effects of precipitation or low precipitation, and it can lead to, you know, low amounts of water reserves. I think now we'll find that we had fairly low levels up to prior to Christmas, but I think in the UK certainly, and here in Ireland, the first few months of this year has been a big boost. So we've recharged our reservoirs. That's going to be a help. There will be water starting off anyway. But we all know, you know, as soon as you get, 10 days, 2 weeks of dry weather, you start seeing these hosepipe bans being announced and restrictions on non-essential now water use. I mean, how they can class, you know, golf greens or higher level sports facilities as, you know, non-essential, but they're actually costing millions of pounds or euros to facilitate, to maintain them. But yet, you know, you get these restrictions, so you have to be aware of that. So basically, when we're talking about a drought, the fairly obvious thing is there's a deficit between what's available in the soil moisture and what our turf grasses actually need. So why are we talking about a drought? Well, as I say, we're talking about in the US and North America, for example. This is a chart here on the right, which was issued March the 19th this year. And you can see, hopefully, these large dark areas. Not only is a drought expected, but it says drought persists. So there is a drought there already through large areas of North America. There's drought expected in other areas. The white areas is the ones that are fairly drought free. So as you can see in North America, this year alone, there's already an expectation of water shortages, huge areas throughout the high plains and the southwest and central of parts of the states. And they're also saying about these flash droughts. That's a term I haven't really come across much. I've heard of flash floods, all right. But a flash drought, I suppose we've experienced these ourselves. I certainly have during my time. You get into July, June, maybe even, and you get, as I say, even a week of dry weather, and your grass is starting to dry out, especially if your irrigation system is not the best. In the UK as well, this is from the Met Office in the UK, it's not too bad at the moment, but they are forecasting more long-term that you're going to get problems, increasing problems with lack of water shortages and drought situations. So what happens when you actually get your grass goes into a drought situation? Well, there's a number of short-term effects, and everyone is familiar with them. I suppose you get the yellowing of the grass and it stops growing. It's what we see, but you will get the visual wilt. That's one of the first signs where you get the footprinting and the discoloration coming in. But in the plant itself, you get a very complex response. I'll go into that now in the next slide, actually. But for us, the playability, once it starts drying out, your surfaces, certainly the greens, your teas can become very hard. So it can change to a very, the playing quality can decrease very rapidly during this drought situation. But let me talk about what's going on in the plant for a moment. Now, long term, drought persists. Obviously, you're going to get it's going to lose some of its root system. It's going to die off. Your crown, if the crowns of your plants become dehydrated and severely damaged, it's probably the end of the story for that particular plant. It's gone. But if you look at this sort of diagram here on the right of the screen, On the right-hand side, where's my cursor gone? Okay. Anyway, on the right-hand side, here we go. You can see, the roots start dying off. You get this discoloration, the lack of chlorophyll, lack of growth. The leaves start wilting. We get what's called reactive oxygen species damage. This is any times of stress. Now, I did a class in Harrogate, in Orlando, about stress in turf grasses there last February. And it's a very complex response in turf grasses to any form of stress. What happens basically is at the first sign of stress, no matter what it is, whether it's a disease, infection, or too severe cold, in this case, drought, and as what goes hand in hand with drought, of course, in our area anyway, is heat stress. So what happens is it recognizes there's a problem and it responds rapidly with what's called, first of all, the hypersensitive response. It involves production of various oxygen species, such as hydrogen peroxide. And this is what the Ross damage is called. It's a rapid response of hydrogen peroxide. It acts as a signaling molecule. It causes a cascade of responses, but it can get out of hand and cause damage to the plant itself. It's a bit like, you could say, a nuclear reactor, which, once that's running nice and smoothly, produces a huge amount of energy and is beneficial. But if it gets out of hand, you can get a meltdown. So while the plant relies on these ROS, or reactive oxygen species, as an immediate response, it has to be controlled. And this is where these what's called antioxidants come in to maintain the balance. So that's a serious problem there. But you get this yellowing. The cells in the plant can collapse through lack of turgor. You get water loss through transpiration. But that's the damage part of this heat and drought stress. But the plant will respond, like I say, very efficiently and rapidly. In the roots, for example, the first response will actually extend first to try and get more moisture from the available moisture in the root zone. But it also produces proteins such as called aquaporins here, which are specialized products which help the input of moisture through the root. At the same time, it reduces the input of salts, which would carry out further damage. Up here at the further on, there's antioxidants produced, as I mentioned, to help maintain this balance of stress response and damage. In the cells, there's other proteins or compounds produced called osmolytes. And now these help maintain the turgor of the cells to try and stop it from collapsing through lack of moisture. The cell walls themselves can be lignified, strengthened, again, just to help maintain their structure. And of course, the stomata, where the respiratory openings will actually close, again, to help maintain moisture in the plant. So basically what I'm saying is the turf grass during a drought or a heat stress doesn't just sit there and lie back and take it. It actually responds with a huge amount of biochemical responses. Now, all of these defenses are not produced out of thin air. So this is the whole point of me going on about this stress response, is you have to ensure that prior to any stress coming in, you're on a balanced nutritional program so that the turf grass has the availability of various compounds then to produce these responses. So that's the first thing I want to say is without overdoing your nutritional inputs, you need a balanced input program so that the plant is able to respond in a timely manner. So having said that, I'm not sure now, let me see what we're going on to next. How do CGC's turfgrass managers respond? So this is an interesting survey which was done by the Crop, Forage and Turfgrass Management Journal. And I think you can see they're looking back over from 2005, 2013 and 2020, looking at management practices used by turfgrass managers, how they what processes they use to respond to drought. There's a whole range of stuff there. Hand watering here, as you can see, is one of their key ways to do it. It's number two there in that list. Back in, well, it hasn't varied much over the years. 72% in 2005 and 78% in 2020. Now, we've all done hand watering. Actually, it can be quite pleasant at times on a nice sunny day to get out with a hose. But as we all know, very labor intensive. So it's getting more difficult to get labor. So that's a tricky one there. An interesting one here is handheld moisture sensors. As you can see, in 2005, no one in the survey was using them. It's gone up to 49%. But looking at that, the way superintendents respond to drought, hand watering, syringing for high heat, not something that's used much in over here on our side of the Atlantic, really. I've never done it myself. I haven't felt the need for it. But what I have done is you have to prioritize. If you have a limited water supply or a fairly bad irrigation. Now, my irrigation system, when I started in the 1980s, was bad. And it didn't get any better, I can tell you, because I'm sure on a standard golf course, we've all been there. When you're only using the irrigation system for a few weeks of the year, it's very difficult to make the case to your committees or your owners to spend hundreds of thousands to invest on a really good irrigation system. So a lot of us are struggling with the systems, unless you're lucky enough and have a high quality, high class one. But a lot of cases, you have to decide where your priorities lie. Obviously, it's the golf greens, but some other areas you might have to help sort of sacrifice. So zoning and prioritizing is one thing. You can go with this brown, this beautiful thing as well, if you're confident that it actually will recover from the being brown. I know in 2018 was the last time when I was a superintendent still, we had a pretty good dry summer. We maintained our greens, but we lost large areas of the approaches and a lot of teeing areas. And they had to be reseeded following on from that. So we lost a lot. Now, we didn't, it wasn't matter we said we would lose them. I thought we just had to, that's the only water we had was for the greens. Anyway, I'll move on to that from that. Just a few more things which we can look at as part of your management program. For example, let's say soil moisture sensors are an excellent way to give you the heads up. Now, a good greenkeeper, I always feel, can read his course fairly well. But soil moisture sensors now will give you the extra few days, maybe even a week, to show you where the areas that will require extra attention regarding water. So they're very useful ones to use. I'm actually using the GCSEA soil moisture meter since last year, and I find that really good. Now, the others obviously will work as well, but that's what I'm using. Again, you can look at long-term change in your cultivars or less drought-prone species if you're able to go that way. Growth regulators are quite a good way. They're going to reduce, obviously, your growth, but that means if you're reducing your growth, the plant is using less, the transpiration rate is reduced, so it's using less water. So that's just a couple of things. I say from that little section, just make sure your plants, your turf grass, are on a balanced nutritional program that are able to respond and keep your heads up. Ensure your irrigation system, whatever you have, is up and running as best you can get it. Soil moisture sensors will help to target very prone areas, and growth regulators would be another one as well. Now, soil surfactants, as you saw on that list of the survey list, was the key one that was being used by superintendents to ward off drought and respond to drought. So quite a few, I'm a turfgrass pathologist dealing with diseases specifically, But I also do independent research. So since 2019, every year, I've been doing various field trials with surfactants for various companies. And I want to talk about one of them now in one moment. But a soil surfactant, basically, as you can see in this, hopefully you can see it in this chart or this diagram, basically you're helping retain connection between in the rhizosphere, this area between the plant and the soil. You're helping to maintain the connection between the root hairs and the water and the moisture in the soil. That's what it's all about. And surfactants will certainly help hugely, big time in this. That little picture on the right here, it's my back area here. It's a USGA sand root zone. Last year I was doing some trials, obviously, as I said, with surfactants, and I just sprayed half of the lawn here with 2 applications of a surfactant. And we got this lovely dry spell through July, and you can clearly see the difference that made. Likewise with this was from a trial I did a couple of years ago. No prizes for seeing which of the plots was not treated with a surfactant. So basically surfactants are a huge benefit, and I'm sure you all know that, retaining moisture during these particular dry areas. So with that, let me just show you a trial I carried out, the most recent trial I carried out last year, 2025. And this was actually using what's called a nanoscale surfactant. So nanoparticles, they're becoming much more common now in the last number of years. They've been used in horticulture and agriculture for maybe 10, 12 years or so, but they're increasingly being used now in turf grass. So nanoparticle technology, what exactly am I talking about here? So very briefly, I'll just put this up so you can actually, read it. So nanoparticles, they're very small particles, silica based, and they're in the size of between 1 and 100 nanometers, usually around 20 to 30 nanometers in size. So what exactly is a nanometer? So everyone is familiar with a millimeter. You know, you're cutting your greens at 3 to 4 millimeters. So 1 millimeter, you know the size of that. A micrometer is 1,000 times smaller than a millimeter, and a nanometer is 1,000 times smaller than a millimeter. So a nanometer is 1 million times smaller than a millimeter. So a very, very small particle size. And briefly, as you can see on that chart there, or the diagram, there's various processes to how produce these nanosilica particles, tiny particles. We're not getting into that, but during the manufacturing process, a whole range of nutritional elements and bioactive compounds, such as surfactant compounds, hydrophilic compounds, can be attached to or encapsulated onto these tiny particles. So basically what we're talking about is using these tiny nanometer particles as a very efficient delivery system for all of these elements and surfactants. So that's basically what we're talking about here, a very efficient delivery system for these particles, for these elements and things. So this is what we did last year. Nanoparticle surfactant trial in Ireland. We did it in Bray Golf Club, which is in County Wicklow, just south of Dublin. And we wanted to assess the effect of sequential applications of these nanoscale surfactants. And we compared it to a range of market-leading surfactants as well. And we wanted to look at things like how it affected root zone moisture, which is the key focus for today, of course, root zone moisture. We also looked at stress responses. We looked at turf grass quality and health and surface firmness. So there's the treatment program here. We had the nanosurfactant, a litre per hectare. Note that. The other 6 surfactants went out at label rates. And as the first thing you can notice is the vast majority of them were at much higher application rates. So nanosurfactant, a litre, 9.5, 14, 14, 14. The only one that came close was this number 6 surfactant, which is 175 litres per hectare. Still almost twice. And then we the untreated control. So as I say, we're concentrating on the effects on soil moisture, but we did look at things like quality, NDVI, which is turf grass health. We looked at we did a process which measured the green color of the grasses as well. We measured surface firmness. We looked at the effects of drought and wilt and the costs. But as I say, we're concentrating on the effects on soil moisture today. And first of all, this is the precipitation, the rainfall at that trial site through the summer. A good mixture. The red colours are the 30-year averages for that area in millimetres. The blue is what we actually got. So June and July, slightly above average rainfall. August, September, drier than usual. So a good balance of weather there for our trial, I have to say. So this is what we found. The effects of these surfactants on the overall average soil moisture for that period is between June and September. As you can see, this is the one on the right is the level of the control. So all these surfactants did what it said on the tin. They help maintain moisture levels right through. The nano silica one, which the 1 litre per hectare was up there at number 3. Now, very little difference in percentages, 15.9 down to 15 for the first ones here. The number 7 was slightly drier, still retained better moisture than the control. That one there, number 7, was actually marketed as very much as a penetrant type surfactant. But even so, you can see in the chart, the surfactants retained adequate moisture. A question that often comes up is, okay, you're increasing the moisture levels. Does that affect the surface firmness? Well, I'll talk to that in one moment. But this is that was the mean values over the full period. This is the measurements over a week-to-week basis. Every 2 weeks, actually, we took the measurements. And as you can see, the dotted line here on the bottom is the control. So as you can see, it lagged drier than all of these surfactant treatments right through the trial. One interesting point was I also measured what's called the variability of these data. Basically, I looked at, using statistical analysis, I looked at how much each of these surfactant treatments, how much they varied from the average over the full period. So the bigger the variance, the more up and down you're going to get the values, wet and dry. So the lower the variance, the more consistent level of moisture. So I did find that the nanosurfactant was much more consistent, less variable than the rest of them. They're all better than the control. I think that I put that down to a better sort of coverage because of such a small particle size. It's covering. It's getting a better, more consistent coverage in the root zone. Another point that came from this, as I looked at it, if you might remember from the precipitation chart, we had a dry August, which was great. And as you can see, this is the nanosurfactant there. So that actually worked better after a few applications than the others through this dry August. So that's a couple of interesting points there. Now, as I said, some people ask, you're retaining more moisture, so is that affecting the surface playability? So this is the measurement I'm going to show from the surface firmness readings I did with the USGA tool, which we have, the GS3 ball, in fact. The drier ones were actually the control, and there's number 6, which was actually, as they marked as a penetrant. The other surfactants, which all retained good moisture, of them, the nano one actually had the firmest surface. So it was retaining moisture and keeping surface playability. I have a little thing on it now in a little while from Colorado in that area I'm going to show as well in a few slides down the line there. So that was the surfactants. What can we say? Well, you're retaining moisture. You had good surface firmness. And as you can see here, we had all the surfactants increased health, increased turfgrass quality. And yeah, so surfactants will do the job, as it says on the tin, and you get some variation in how they perform, but we did see the nano silica one was actually more consistent there. So let me move on now. You might think silica to alleviate drought stress is something that you wouldn't think. I wouldn't have thought about it a few years ago. So why use silica to help with drought stress? I'm not talking about a surfactant here, just silica inputs, nanosilica inputs. So here's the thing, managing water stress with nanoparticle technology. Now, silica boosts nutrient and water uptake by increasing membrane permeability. It strengthens cell walls, improving the structure. So as I say, the cells aren't going to collapse as quick. We also, silica will enhance photosynthesis, increase light penetration and chlorophyll content. It will increase growth, biomass, and actually turf vigor. Nanosilica and water itself, water management in the soil, it improves soil water holding capacity, especially in sandy soils. It actually, enhances plant water status under drought and salinity, and it strengthens roots and root layers, reducing water loss. Now you're probably saying, "Well, holy my, that's a lot of things you can talk about claims for nanosilica." But it's not me that's saying it. Actually, there's a huge amount of published research in peer-reviewed journals on the benefits of silica, or as they call it in America, silicon, and regarding this area of drought stress and water management. For example, let me see now, evaluating silicon drought stress. Silica application increases photosynthesis and it's metally. Silicon improves water use efficiency in maize plants. So what I'm saying is there's a huge published catalogue of the benefits of silica in regard to drought stress and water management in a whole range of plants, including turfgrass. So let me show you this. So this is another research trial I did last year. And it's called Nanosilica Research Trial. Again, it was in Bray on a golf green, which wasn't being used. They have a number of areas that are as a sort of like a turf nursery maintained as a golf green, which is very handy. So this one, we looked at 2 nanosilica products, which were applied at varying rates. And we had to evaluate these when they're applied by themselves and in combination with a growth regulator and with a standard foliar treatment of 2900, which included minor nutrients as well. So here's the program here, actually. As you can see, there were 7 different treatment programs and untreated controls. Nanosilica product A, nanosilica product B in combination with the PGR and the tank mix. Now, there's different application rates, and that all went out at 14-day intervals. The ones to watch really would be this number 4, which is just the tank mix on its own, which is the 2900, and number 7, which is just the nanosilica products applied in combination without any other inputs as well. So there were the treatments that went out every 2 weeks, and we measured a whole range of stuff there as well, such as, well, we looked at volumetric water as well while I was doing it. Again, NDVI, turf quality, growth, color, green surface metrics such as green speed, trueness, and smoothness, and the costs of each of these programs. Again, just to concentrate on the effects on soil moisture. Now, bear in mind, no surfactants in these treatments at all. So it's just nanosilica, various treatments, and a 2900. So this is the mean moisture levels between June and September. And what you can notice first is all the blue ones contained the nanosilica. And it's quite obvious that it was retaining a lot more moisture than the non-silica inputs, the control and the 2900. So that was a very interesting result there, I have to say. If we look at this week-to-week assessment from May through to September, we're comparing the nanosilica A, which also went out in combination with the 2900, to the 2900 on its own and the control. So as the second or so treatment went out, you can see certainly from the 1st of July onwards, there was a much better retention of moisture right through that particular period. It was the same with the second nanosilica treatment, silica B, with compared to the 2900, again, retained much better moisture from the start of July right through. And this combination, so the 2900 here on its own and the nanosilica A and B together without any other inputs apart from the growth regulator, again, very good moisture retention. So the interesting thing about that is, where am I gone? Is without using any surfactants, we're retaining better moisture. So we also did a lot of changes, a lot of enhancement regarding green speed and shrewdness and that. But just to say, it's all about moisture today. And on that, here's I mentioned about does this extra moisture affect surface playability? So we measured it, as I just showed you a few minutes ago, that the nanosilica here had good surface firmness. But here's the thing on the right, which came in from Colorado, in fact, in the US. And this guy was using the nanoparticle, the same products. It's actually acquired from 19 Defend and Spark. So he's been using that. And these are just from last week, these readings here. So first thing notice down here, hopefully you can see it, the moisture. 25% moisture, which is really good level of moisture. The speed is 13.3 or 13.3 inches. So very fast. And yeah, so you're thinking, the extra moisture, is it slowing down or affecting it? And it's not. You're getting really good moisture levels and really good speed and smoothness and trueness, in fact. So just thought I'd put that in because it only came through yesterday, in fact. Interesting there. So anyway, let me move on to whatever this is. So you've seen the surfactants do the job. We've seen that nanosilica nutrient inputs are going to help with drought and moisture retention. So let me just share some of these more current ones I'm doing. I started these in September of last year. Evaluation of nanosilica to reduce drought stress and wilt in treated turf grass, this was in the greenhouse. And it ran from August up to December, where we had 3 different treatments of the nanosilica particles applied at 10-day intervals. And then when we finished the final application, we dried them down to have a look at the effects on drought stress and that. The second one was where we wanted to quantify the amount of water you could save by using nanosilica particles. Again, it was the greenhouse one. Again, we applied 3 applications of these products. We stopped the water, and we dried them down to 15% volumetric water percentage. And then to maintain 15%, we added water and quantified the amount of water it took to keep that level of moisture. So this is the first one. Again, it's evaluation of nanosilica to reduce drought stress and wilt. In a greenhouse environment, it went from August. After the final application, we dried them down. The idea was to get down to 10% moisture. And unfortunately, I went too late in the year. Even though I was in a greenhouse, I couldn't get them dried down enough to 10% to get effective drought on them. It was just damp and that, even in the greenhouse. Now I'm redoing this starting, in a couple of weeks actually. We run it through the summer where we get some really good information there. Now we did get some good information. This is the treatments that went out. Nanosilica, the first one, which was acquired in 19. This one was the second one was Defend. So different application rates. 3 applications of them, dried it down, and what we found was, even though we didn't get to the wilt stage, we got some really good data. So this is September, where we started drying them down on the left. And very interestingly, as you can see, the dotted red line is the control level of moisture. And even though we didn't hit 10%, you can see that the silica inputs, the nano silica inputs, retain much better moisture right through that period. Again, remind you that there's no surfactants in those treatments. So that was very interesting. As they were going to follow up with this and really kill off the grass, see what happens this coming next few weeks. We'll be starting on that one. The second one we did, just retaining with that one, we did get some interesting data regarding the health and the quality and the color. So all of those surfactants, so all those silica inputs retained or enhanced health and quality, as you can see. Now, the second one I want to show was this quantification of how much water it took to maintain the root zones at 15%. Again, it was in the greenhouse. The target was 15% volumetric water. We applied the treatments, we stopped applying them, and then we started drying down, and we inputted water then. Every drop was measured to see how we retained the moisture. This one had the very same inputs, except we also had the nano surfactant as well. So nanosilica 1, which was 19, this was Defend, and different application rates. 3 applications, dry it down, look what happened. So started to dry down, and October I started adding water to all of our, these were in trays and that, and in the greenhouse. So I measured the amount of water it took to bring them to maintain 15% right through all of these treatments. And this is what we found, actually. You can see where they started drying down. Down here is the target. And to maintain that 15% area, this is what happened. So you're taking the top one here this is the control. This is the standard to compare to. So to maintain the 15%, the nano surfactant required only 44% of the water required by the control. So that's a big saving there. All of the other surfactants, cut that. All of the other inputs, which were nanosilica inputs, again retained or use a lot less water to maintain 15%. So this was 19 here, and the Defend combined 69% only of water usage compared to the control. Even these here, 58, 59%, 63%. So all of those nanosilica and the surfactant inputs required a lot less water to maintain that 15%, which is something we saw during the field trials last year as well. So just to reiterate, nanosilica surfactant here and nanosilica nutrient inputs, no surfactants, a lot less water required to maintain a good level of moisture. So take home points. We're coming up to 45 minutes, not too bad, not too long. Basically, if you're looking at drought stress responses, you can take it that we're going to have some sort of drought period through this coming summer. There's no doubt about it. Some areas, like in the US, are already in drought situations. Obviously, ensure that your irrigation system is up and running and up to grade. If you can do what you can with it, to make sure that's as good as you can get it. Turf grass surfaces are prepared. Again, as I say, turf grass will respond to all sorts of stress in very complex biochemical manners. This requires nutrient inputs to ensure that they have the resources. So apply a balanced program prior to onset of stress. Don't apply it during stress, of course, because it causes a lot of damage. Actually, thinking of it, if your nutrient input, it can reduce the amount of salt-based nutrients, would be helpful there as well, of course. Now, what else have we got? surfactants obviously are a huge help, but don't leave them to the last minute. Get them out early, get them out now. Actually, this is April, so you should be on a program now. And we did see that nanosilica inputs, nutritional inputs, that silica based, are going to help retain moisture. What else can we say? Well, Aquariton are sponsoring today, and they've done a lot of work, a lot of research in this area. The nanosilica strengthens cell walls, which, apart from drought stress, is going to help retain plant health. Even, for example, under disease infection, where you're going to slow down the infection, the pathogen getting into the cells. Heat stress mitigation, we saw the research from published research with silica helps photosynthesis and light penetration into the cells also. And the published research also shows that you get root enhancement. So root enhancement is going to have a bigger root system, better able to explore and take up water from whatever is in the soil. And so basically, synergy complements the surfactants by ensuring the plant can actually use the water. So again, the published research shows that silica will enhance water use efficiency in plants. So take all that into account. And what else have we got? The trial results that I've done last year shows that the nanoparticle surfactant performed just as good as the market leaders. They all performed well. But the cost savings I looked at were significant. Less inputs and overall cheaper to provide them, in fact. Nanosilica also, in a nutrient program, retained higher moisture levels compared to non-silica-based treatments. The quantifying the water savings, all the nanosilica products help reduce water requirements while still retaining 15% moisture. And as you can see, 44% less water in the surfactant one, and around 60 to 70% less water just from the nutrient inputs from the nanosilica as well. So that's about it, really. And Dan, I'm not sure if there's any questions or not coming through, but that's the Aquariton website there. This is mine here on X or Twitter, my email. So any questions or anything come through there also. Now let me see. Do we have any questions here now? Got it.
I'm not quite sure what the best thing to do, John. Perhaps people can unmute and fire away a question.
Yeah, maybe.
Would that be the best option?
Yeah, you can try that. Yeah.
So it's on your marks, get set, go, I guess.
Let me see now. Participants. Do we have to unmute them, I wonder?
No, I think they can do it themselves. If anyone's got a question,
okay,
perhaps you can unmute yourself and fire away. Maybe you've answered all the questions, John.
I doubt that.
Well, okay. Well, if there isn't any questions, obviously there's a lot to take in. As Anil said, this webinar is going to be available on YouTube, I think. So he will send the link, and we'll get the link out to everybody from there, so we can also reflect on that. If not tomorrow, but obviously in the future, if there's any questions we need to answer, we can refer back to the YouTube video. It is a lot to take. One thing, John, I've got to say, it's very difficult for me to comprehend is nanotechnology. Well, when you talked about 1 mil and then breaking that down to thousands and thousands, I think Neil Westlake, who's on the webinar at the moment, he described it to me as, if you can imagine the population in the world, 70 billion, I think it is, and you try and effectively get those people all into a matchbox. That's what it sort of equates and breaks down to, which is really mind blowing. and very difficult to understand. But hopefully, this webinar has helped that.
Yeah, or think of say a football pitch covered in footballs as the standard particle size, and the nano silica as maybe a size of a peanut or something. So basically, you're getting more particles. You will be getting a better, more even coverage as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Suppose.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Okay, John. Well, as I say, thank you very much for your time. Very full of information, and as I say, we can refer back to that within the YouTube video. We'll get out to everybody, and obviously it'll be available online anyway. So yeah, thank you very much.
And I won't be listening to the YouTube video because I hate listening to myself talk.
No, I know what you mean. Sure.
Okay,
so, yes.
Thank you all. We'll close the webinar now.
Yeah, thanks you all. Thanks very much.
Hope you all have a good day. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon. Okay.
Cheers, John. Thank you.